Welcome to Sex, Lies, and Blank Pages with our special guest, Lydia Michaels. Welcome.
Welcome.
Hi, Lydia. I know you. This is your first time meeting Stacy and Colleen, though,
It's
right?
so nice to meet you guys.
Yes,
Yeah.
very nice to meet you guys. You guys, wait a minute. All of you. I don't know any of you. It's been a long week. I think me and Colleen are still in the Comic-Con glow. We're like,
Yes.
So we all know you, but for the sake of our audience, can you give us just a little bit of an intro?
Well, I started writing in 2007. I was originally traditionally published. I do have a few books with Penguin Random House, and then in 2015 I went hybrid. So I think I just finished writing my 46th romance novel.
Congratulations.
Thanks. And it's been quite a journey and hitting that kind of point in my life where I'm just really enjoying it now. Just kind of letting it
What's
tell
your
me
favorite
more.
book? Like, if for all of the readers
you're
listening,
like
what is your
asking her to pick her child, Willow.
My favorite baby.
Sophie's choice.
My favorite book. Wow, Willow, that's so hard because I can't pick a lane, so I'm all over the genre. So I have dark and warm and fuzzy. I guess my favorite's probably Livy and Rose.
Yeah.
So that's my
I
baby.
love it. That's on the contemporary side, right?
Yes, that's like straight contemporary. You have Best Friend's Brother, Jilted Bride, New York setting, very contemporary.
But you're
Nice.
Go ahead. I was gonna
No, I
no.
was
Yeah, I was
sounds
just
good
gonna
to
say,
me.
yeah, it sounds great, but I'm kind of curious now. You said you can't stay in your lane for someone like me too. Like, what all do you write? Like, what's all the
Yeah,
lanes
so
that you're
it was
down?
so funny, Stacey, because I was asking Willow about you, and she was telling me about you jumping into fantasy. And
Oh,
so,
I've always been fantasy. I jumped into contemporary.
okay, the other way
Yeah,
around then. You had
yeah.
it wrong. So, well, one of my best sellers is actually Amish vampires.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm there.
It's my favorite cover. I love this cover.
Thank
It's called
you.
Original Sin, right?
Yes, that's book
Yes.
one. And that's free right now if anyone wants to go grab it to check it out. It's not like Amish, like Christian romance at all. It's dark and it's dirty. This is like a very Handmaid's Tale cult following. They hunt their mate, they claim their mate, they're unapologetic about abducting their mate. And there's a lot of darkness in it. And the longer it goes on, the darker it gets. So book five is coming out in August for that series.
Yes, I will be reading that since I
Yes.
live in Amish country.
And I know Colleen's like in the Amish country, like side that
Oh, are
she's
you?
like perfect.
Yeah, I
Are
live
we?
outside of Lancaster.
Oh my gosh, yes. So I went to school at Kutztown, and so that's kind of.
I went to college at Kutztown.
Did you really?
Yeah, small world.
Oh my gosh, are we alums?
Goodness.
I'm sorry?
I said, are we alums?
Yes.
So cool. Yeah, so we were actually, that's how that series came to me. We were on a girls' weekend in Paradise, which is I get yelled at for how I say Lancaster. And how do you say it?
Lancaster.
Lancaster. Yeah, so I Lancaster. The Philly accent. So we were in Paradise and it was late and it was girls' weekend. We were all drinking wine and we were standing outside. I used to smoke back then. So we were standing outside smoking cigarettes at like 1 in the morning, and all of a sudden, like this dark, misty, clip-cloppy horse came by out of nowhere. And my girlfriend standing there, and I go, what if they were vampires? And she was like, I'm going in.
And
And
I'd
that's
be like, I'm staying, go on.
so that's
Honestly, I could see it.
yeah, it makes so much sense when
It
you think about
does.
it because they're hiding in plain sight. So
Hmm.
I found out, Stacey, when I found out that you write like fantasy and stuff, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, good.
Yeah, no, I'm totally the fantasy girl. I have to do contemporary just to almost like it's a palate cleanser for me.
Yes.
After a while, the building worlds, and I'm like, I just want a girl meets boy. Not that I still don't tragically, take them into dark places, but I just sometimes I need that, So I feel like I write contemporary just for me. I don't think
Yeah,
anybody
no,
reads it.
I get that. I wrote it's not my masterpiece would be Hurt, and that is so dark. Like I just didn't even know how to classify triggers for it. I was just like every trigger warning, just watch out. And Hurt was really, really dark and heavy. And it took me, I write really fast. That book took me 3 years to write, though. So that was like one exception to the rule. And after that, like I'm immediately telling my readers, I'm like, oh, jump over to Calamity Rain, which is a rom-com. And they're like, what? And I'm like,
Yeah.
trust me, it'll heal you.
Whiplash.
Don't worry.
I feel like I'm cheating here with this question because we spent a week together in Wildwood. We just had lunch together. Like I knew some inside detail. But with Original Sin, and correct me if I'm wrong, my memory is awful. That was originally with a publisher, right?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
you have a story to tell. We do have a lot of other authors in our audience. So if you want to tell us about that roller coaster ride.
I can tell you that roller coaster ride. I'm going to edit as I go. So that was Original Sin was originally called a different title, and it was my first book deal. So it was with small press, and it was really exciting. And of course, like back then, I thought it was going to change the world. Um, and we celebrated and everything, and the contract was awful. So one takeaway there for anyone new, be very careful of your contracts. Very, very careful. This was a 7-year contract, and it was exclusive to all of the characters mentioned in the book. Like even the simplest little like side segue, they would then own the rights to that character. And then so they wanted me to continue to write the series, and the series did well. And they wanted me to continue to write the series, and so I did three books with them. And every time I did a book, it extended that 7 years. So we were in this very long, heavy contract. And this was a terrible publisher. And it turns out that I really do believe that they were embezzling from their authors. And it was one of those things, it was they kind of curated this environment of don't tell. They were very gatekeeping. It was almost a hostile environment for me like I really was like, oh, it wasn't a comfortable vibe for me. It was really hard as a young author. I was still in my 20s and I didn't really know anything about the industry. I just knew that I wanted to break into it. And it was a very cliquey, competitive, not at all what I've found since then. Let me just clear that up, because it's really, if you're in an environment like that with a publisher, get out, because that is not the norm and that is not okay. So figuring out that something was wrong with the royalties and things like that created a little bit of a issue, because I didn't know who I could trust and who I could go to about it. So I got a lawyer. I had them look over things. I'm good with words, not so much with like the math. So I had to have someone who was really good at like breaking things down to say, well, where are these percentages of pennies going? And it was like, exactly. So the reporting was a little shady. So at that point, I was with a second small press, and then all of this stuff started, like everything started happening at once for me back then. And this was like early, I'd say like 2010-ish. So everything kind of started to snowball in a good way with a lot of book deals. And I had a second publisher who was a small press, and I said, hey, I'd really like to move this series over to you guys because I really don't have a good vibe with them. And I learned from signing with these other presses that it really is friendly out there. And there's like these wonderful like Facebook groups where authors want to help each other. And this was really before indie broke out. And Facebook was still pretty new back then. Keep in mind, I've been doing this so long that I started as an author on MySpace. And I didn't even know what it was. I was just like my younger cousin helped me set it up. So, I talked to that publisher and I was like, I really want to pull this over. So I had a lawyer help me first break every additional character has to be with them rule. And that let me break out, but they didn't let me go. And then my royalties started getting smaller and smaller, but like book 4 was really selling. So that's kind of weird because it's definitely a read and order series. And my reporting was very off once I had 2 different publishing houses. So then I wanted to just get rid of them. And it was breaking my heart because I love this series, like the concept of the Amish vampires, and they really wanted it a little too sexed up for me. They were just really pushing like put more C words in there and this and that. And that's fine. I love smut. I love, I love a good dirty book. But this was more of a dark drama and kind of like a thriller romance kind of thing that I had going. And it was very original and I wanted to be true to that. So I eventually got another lawyer and I pushed really hard and I started to say to them, I understand what's happening with our royalties and it's not okay. And at that point, they came back with their lawyer and had said, well, we will release you from your contract if you sign a non-disclosure.
Ooh,
And like, I'm an author, I like my
that's a
voice.
sign.
You're never going to silence me. So I basically told them to no. I put all the books in what I call the vault. Like I took them off my website. I stopped publicizing them. There was no promotions. I buried them as hard as I could, just as deep and hard as I could. And I waited. It was a long time because the last book set that 7 year clock again. And I waited for the rights. And then I had to go back to the original drafts, which was fine because they had changed them so much through edits. I wasn't happy with what they were. And I re-edited and re-released them and they did phenomenal.
Yes.
Oh,
And that
great.
was just a few years ago, right?
Yeah, it took a long time for those rights to come back. So, because I had to wait for the last one. So once I got the first one, I was able to start working on it. And then I had to wait like 2 more years on top of that to get all of them. And now we just hit the mark and the second publisher I was with, they actually closed down. They went bankrupt.
I was going to say, there's another story that I was thinking of. I think you told me these two back to back, but you have seen some shit.
Seen it all.
I
Like,
have. I am
really.
the girl who signs with a literary agent, and the agent announces they're retired. Like, so that's a story. Do you
Did
want
that happen?
Yeah, so oh God.
Bring it. Come on. We're
Yeah.
here for it.
I
We're
haven't
here
even
for
sipped
it.
the wine yet, and you're like, spill the tea.
Yeah.
We're like,
So
drink some more wine. Go ahead.
that one, yeah, I am like one long cautionary tale. So that publisher house, they had closed down, they went bankrupt, and they took all of my release money for pre-orders. So they made a pretty penny. And then they gave us a phone number to a lawyer that never answered or returned a single call, email, anything. And it was really, really hard too, seeing like the owner, like the CEO, get like new cars and put them on Facebook. You know, and you're not having any of your royalties.
Yeah. Or did you get copyrights back when it closed down, or did you have to wait?
We did. They were really good with that. So that was good. And we were able to work out things because no one really, I mean, like traditional, back then we didn't know anything about graphic design. So being able to maintain the rights to our covers and things like that, they worked with us there. But the lawyer thing they didn't. And there was definitely some royalties that did not get, turned out to the authors. And then I think it was just such a big deal. We were so relieved because this was right after Ellora's Cave had happened. And so many Ellora's Cave authors couldn't even get their book rights back. I mean, it was insane. Like I know people whose careers were just ruined by that.
Oh, right. And for our listeners who don't know, when Ellora's Cave, which was an online platform, when it shut down, the authors didn't have their rights, therefore the books no longer existed. So if somebody had their entire catalog and that was their career, they no longer had a career.
It was devastating. I mean, I had so many friends who were tied up in that and that was their only publisher. So that was really devastating and it still breaks my heart.
When was that? Because I never even heard of this. Laura's Cave? Like I never even heard of that.
Really? Oh, wow.
I did. I remember.
It was like 2015-ish. Maybe 2014. It was right. And then there was Samhain they were a press and they closed down and they were a little more decent. The Ellora's Cave thing was very there was something that wasn't like a bankruptcy. That was like I want to be careful what I say here. That was something very something
controversial, something
controversial. Yes, thank you. The words are tough at this time of day. There was some controversy there. but I also had a
It also just sucks, like to not give the rights back. Like
yeah.
if you
So mean.
know that you're exactly like all of these authors trusted you, they gave you their babies, this is their career, and you're like, oh, we're going under. I could so very easily give you your rights back so you can survive, but I'm just not going to.
And what
Yeah,
did
because
they
it's
do
not,
with those?
yeah, it's not like they're using them. So you're just
Yeah.
like, we're just doing it just to be spiteful. Like that just sounds like spite.
Well, and I think too,
Or
I think it
entitlement.
comes down, like, pardon my French, but I think it comes down to a little bit of just like, in business, you have to have some balls. And, like I always tell everyone, like, authors really, we have to like mermaid, we have to perform, we have to, do all the girly Barbie things. And it's like, but to survive in this business, you really can't be a mermaid. You have to be a shark. And you can't be afraid to show your teeth. And I mean, I had colleagues who literally just let their world crumble. And it got to a point where I said, listen, you have your documents, you have this contract. There was all this like controversial stuff going on, there's lawsuits going on. Just reproduce your book, just redo it. Like, do you think they're sometimes it's about, are they really going to follow that thread to go hunt down, little Susie, no one author who wants to just reestablish herself? No, they have a huge dumpster fire in their lap. Like, they're not going to do that. And sometimes it's about really just having the guts to play the game aggressively and confidently and just move forward. And I think a lot of authors could have redeemed their rights that way, just by aggressively saying, this is mine, go ahead and try to sue me over it, because they would have won in court. They would.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
they were terrified baby authors.
Yeah.
And then, and there's so many moments when we really do, our hands are tied. Like,
Yeah.
I had originally, go ahead, were you going to say something, Willow?
I was
Sorry.
just going to say it's a little bit similar to there was a paperback distributor that a number of indie authors a few years ago, including myself, gave rights to. And they
Mhm.
had all of these promises. Um, and then it absolutely collapsed. But in the years before it collapsed, about 2 years, several authors just started publishing it. They said, you're not selling this. You're not doing what you said you were going to do. You're
Mhm.
charging author copies X amount. Like I've asked for my rights back. You're not giving me my rights back. I'm just going to produce it myself.
Yeah.
And they did, and they didn't follow through because the company was failing so horribly.
And
But it is a scary thing because you're breaking a contract,
mhm.
and we like to hold. Oh, we're gonna have Margarita on my copyright
Yeah.
lawyer on here at some point, and I could totally ask her about this. I'm sure she'll have a heart attack. But we like to believe that these contracts are made in good faith. But when the other side is shown to have acted in bad faith, I think that's when there is this like, okay, do we take these contracts seriously when they're not taking their own word seriously? Like in the instance of, okay, we're not going to do anything with your copyrights. This is going to kill your career, but we're going to keep this contract so that you just have nothing. Like that, there's a moral and ethical obligation that you could argue in court as well as other things. So this is very much a gray area, and it'd be interesting. I wish I could just pop in, like just add a square and bam, Margarita is there.
I think a lot with contracts, you have to be very careful and add a bad faith clause in. You can
Yes.
do
A
that
lot of
in your
contracts have them.
contracts.
But
And
Yeah.
then
there's
it's a
always
matter of
more.
arguing what does this exact like the terms and meanings. And I don't know if you know this, Lydia, but I think I've told Stacy and Colleen that one of my guilty pleasures, I don't even know if I want to call it a guilty pleasure, that sounds horrible, is looking through a number of lawsuits, either with like public relations with housewives and Bravo celebrities, or like all sorts of things. But there are some interesting ones
Oh,
in
yeah.
our industry over the years. There have been fiduciaries who have claimed copyrights because they got in trouble embezzling in international countries. There have been like, it is absolutely wild what goes on. And it comes down to contract. And that particular lawsuit, I don't even know if it's still ongoing, but I hadn't heard of that author. Like I knew of them, and they
Mm.
kind of vanished. And I was like, oh gosh, I wonder what's going on. And someone else was like, oh, this is what's going on. Because lawsuits take years. and
Yeah.
years. Yeah.
Also, I think everyone should do the poor man's copyright. You know, I mean, my lawyer had told me about that, and I think that's brilliant.
What's the poor man's
The
copyright?
poor man's copyright, it actually has to do with, I believe it's Eddie Murphy and Coming to America. And I think there's a lawsuit that you can look into about that and where the manuscript for that came from. And that was the like the set president, you know, the president lawsuit that. So you basically, when you finish a manuscript, you know, as soon as you start writing a manuscript, it's supposedly copyrighted. But let's say that you're tying that manuscript up with someone else, a co-author or a publisher or something. Before anything happens, print it out and seal it in an envelope and address it to yourself with a return address to yourself and mail it to yourself. And when it comes back to you, don't open it. Don't crack that seal. The fact that it's sealed with a postage stamp dated is going to lock it in as a legal document if you need to enter it into court to prove that a judge can break that seal, open that, and prove that this is the original date of when this was made because of the postage stamp, and you own rights to it first. So if you're in a contract with a, you know, someone else and they're not fulfilling their part of the deal and they're like, well, we did all this work. Well, you have it right there that they didn't even touch it before this date. So that's the poor man's copyright.
Get an old wax seal, so you have to snap it away.
The wax up.
Yeah. But I think this is a good topic to show that. I mean, I think it's so many newbies in here get so excited. They want their, you know, they write this book, they want it to be big, and then they just jump in with the first, you know, like this contract and don't even really read it, or they just want to be, you know, like, oh, they're going to take it, make it bigger. And it just, I've seen so many more tragic stories than I have seen good when they jump in right away.
Definitely.
And it just like,
with Penguin Random House is interesting, and I am so grateful for my book deal with them. But I landed that deal. I landed it. I was at a signing and I went upstairs to pitch to an agent. They back then they used to take, like, they would hold hotel room meetings and they'd let you pitch to them. And there was this cute little blonde woman standing there, and she was waiting for someone, and she asked if I was her, and I said no. And I said, who are you? And she said, I'm with Berkeley. And I said, oh. And I said, well, I'm going in here, but when I come out, if your client or, you know, appointment doesn't show, I'd be happy to take their slot. And that's like what I always tell people, you know, take the opportunity in front of you, like take the meeting, always ask, you know, put your foot through the door, like get in there. And that's how I ended up landing that, you know, I had like a 3-book deal with them, eventually came out of that meeting. But what happened was I got the contract and it was way different than a small press contract. I mean, it was so above my grade level. And I took it to a lawyer, just a regular old lawyer that we knew. And he was like, yeah, you need a literary attorney. And I was like, what's that? Yes. So he said, find an agent. And I had been pitching to agents for years. And I said, well, that's easier, you know, said than done. And he goes, no. You have a deal now with one of the biggest English speaking, you know, publishing houses in the world. Go back to your favorite agent that rejected you and tell them you have that deal and ask them, are you interested now? So I did. And I got the agent like that. Like, it was like they jumped. I remember driving to get my kid at the bus stop and then being like, well, send me this and let's go over the contract. And they were so fast to give me that contract. But here's again, my career has been just one long cautionary tale. She retired 3 months later. She is making 10% off of my royalties to this day. I landed the deal. She couldn't give me anything after she retired. I mean, like, you have to be aware. Wow. And that's not even the first agent that, like, oh, there's so many. I mean, I had 3 book deals lined up on my book Sugar. And shouldn't say deals, 3 very interested publishers who were seeking more. And I said, you know, I really, because I had gotten into indie and it was really hard for me I was struggling with being a hybrid. I was like, I just really was more comfortable traditionally. And I wanted to get back into traditional more so because I felt I was at that 50-50 point and I was like, I want to be heavier in traditional. My opinions changed since then because the market's changed. But at that point, that's where I was. So I had 3 publishers really interested and I had pitched to all of them and they were all interested from RWA. That's how I got with them. And then I was, feeling around for an agent, and I had these three, one wanted to offer this deal. Like we were discussing deals and setups and should it be a trilogy? Should it be a standalone? All of these things. Like we were plotting out how is this book going to come to fruition, because it was already one drafted manuscript. Get this agent, and she tells me to send it to her. She goes, don't agree to anything yet. I want to read this. I want to go over it. I'm going to talk to so-and-so. She talks to one of the publishers. She's like, we think it should be first person. So it switched from third person to first person, which was a big overhaul. I mean, if you've ever done that, it's a pain. And then
Did you have to do it yourself?
yes. And
I
then
would so hire an editor. Like, because
well,
that doesn't right? Like you couldn't hire an editor to switch it because that sounds so
it's not,
tedious.
it is tedious, but I did that with the Surrender trilogy too. And it's kind of like when you're working with the publishing houses, you really they put together these really nice deals for you, and you want to work with them, and you're not done, you're so excited about the deal, you want to give them the best possible product. So if they're telling you to do this, you really want to go in and do as much as you can, and then when it goes through their editors, you kind of lose autonomy a little bit along the way, because once it's, you don't have a choice in your covers and things like that. So
Right.
you want to hold on to the power you have when you have it in the creative process. So I didn't mind that so much, but it is tedious. And what happened was, I remember it was at one of the retreats, Willow, and I was like, I need to hear from this agent. And one of the authors who was there said, wait a minute, what's her name? And I gave her her name, and she goes, do you know that she's blacklisted from all of these, conferences? And I was like, what? And I didn't know, because I live on, and I'm like, of course this is, who I'm,
of course,
of course this was like, yeah, I'll take this one. So I reached out to her and I said, listen, it's been like 6 months and I need some like traction here, because we had three and now I don't even know what's going on. Like I redid all these edits. I changed the entire book, sent it back to you. You're not giving me anything. She says, let's jump on a call. She gets on a call. She goes, I really think that the hero is kind of a jerk. I'm not really feeling him now. All of the deals fell through. All of them. She had me change this whole book. She waited too long. All of them fell through. And then it was just such a nightmare. So at that point, I was like, I am my own agent.
Yeah.
And
you do better. Oh my God. Oh,
right.
Would just be, oh my God. That's just like makes my heart.
I know.
hurt.
I'm sitting here
all
like,
of this.
oh.
Yes. All of this makes my heart. It's literally a cautionary tale. So you have had, let's call them low lows. You have mentioned a few. How about some high highs?
Oh, well, high highs. Let's see. So my book deal with Penguin was awesome.
Yeah.
I remember still, I called my mom screaming. She was in the dollar store and she thought I was like in an accident. She's like, "Mom, what's going on?" And then that happened, and then it wasn't going to go to print originally. It ended up going to print, and then I remember going into the bookstore and I asked, where is it? And they go, oh, it's a really nice spot. And it was on, not even in the aisle, it was on the end cap, right between Crossfire and 50 Shades. Like it was like me in a Sylvia E.L. James sandwich.
Like right cozy in there.
Yeah.
It was so cozy.
That's a good spot to be.
That's a good spot.
That was a super high day.
I imagine I would hold on to that one. Yeah.
Yeah, it was great. And I think I do think that, it's funny. I don't know. I'm very much like be present in the journey. And I know this career is really, really hard. And I've had extreme success. And then I've had years where I just was like, why am I doing this? And, it's a lot of restructuring, reinventing, pivoting. And when I also coach authors and teach, and I specialize in plotting. And the way that I teach that is I actually take them through a character arc on themselves of, what's your journey? And I do a lot of comparisons to Titanic. And, like, which person are you going to be when the ship goes down? Are you going to be the person who's like screaming and crying and using up all their energy? Or are you going to preserve your energy and like float on the raft like Rose? Or are you going to like sink in the water like Jack? Because Jack didn't make out so well. And it's like,
she could have moved over.
She could have. There was some room there. There was some room. Also, did any of the people who were drinking, did they survive or no? Was that an option?
They actually did.
That's
They
me.
actually did. You're gonna be fine.
I'll be fine. I'll be all right.
Yeah. I'm like the kind, I'm fine. The room's on fire around me. Fine.
Yeah.
Everything's fine.
Like, I always think like, it's chaotic and it's a saturated market. It's like, and it's cold and lonely sometimes and scary and dark and you don't know which way to go. And those few and far between publishing deals, they're like the hardly filled little like rescue boats. Like they're afraid, they don't even want to come into the and you need to be prepared for when someone comes with an opportunity. So the best thing that I try to do is like write something of quality. And I think while my work is all over, in every lane, I think the one thing they know from me, my readers know, is they're getting a good book and a long book. I mean, Willow and I laugh all the time.
Yeah. She said she was going to write a short book. And I said, what's short for you? And she said 60K. I write 50 to 55. So,
Okay,
her short is my normal.
You and I are more on the same page because like every time they talk about it, I'm like, I'm not even halfway through at 50. Like to me, 60 or 70 is halfway through for me.
My last book was 128,000 words.
Oh yeah.
And my paranormal, I mean, my gosh, there's so much world building. That was 150K. I mean,
easy. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't, and I love characterization. So I like layered plots, like I like multiple plot layers and I don't know. I mean, I can't do them short. I try.
I've tried to, yeah. I'm just curious though, like I've heard this from outside people going, when you do multi lanes of it actually ends up hurting your career, not helping, because people want to find you for one thing. And that's why I ended up dividing my name from Stacey Marie Brown to S. Marie for contemporary and paranormal, because I feel like people do want this from you. So I just wondered if you've noticed that.
Oh, 100%. 100%. And I will tell you, I have a couple colleagues who are serial writers, and they will literally write 5-book series, and all of their series interconnect in one solid world. And they're living in that world nonstop. I mean, they're living in that world nonstop. As they're doing this, they're on book, 60. And they started 5 years ago, but they've never left that world. I can't do that. I don't want to do that. I guess I'm too ADD or something. I don't know. Like, I mean, Hurt was like 2 timelines, 2 different time frames. Like one was past, one was present, and one was in America, one was in Scotland. There's like underground crime, there's a love story, there's trauma bonding, like there's all these elements going on. And once I was done writing that, I need to get the hell out of there. I mean, it was like traumatic for me. It was dark. And then, it definitely would be financially better if you're a new author and you haven't started yet. If you can stick in that world, or at least, expand that world, like that one author I was talking about, like her series are all different. Like they're different units, whether they're military or like law, they're different units, but it's all the same world and they cross over. So she's always able to plant that character at the end that leads them on. And her buy through is outstanding because of that. My buy through, it's a hard sell. I mean, in the spring, you're getting a rom-com. In the summer, right before spooky season, you're getting a vampire. And then, I have tried to talk myself out of doing standalones from now on because they're really hard to market too.
They can be more difficult. So I bebop around, and there's definitely good read through on series, but a hot standalone every now and then will pop off. And it can, as long as you do these pulse sales and you can give it the publisher love that publishers should be giving to books and keeping it alive. Like I know that when you split the fence, people say it can't be successful or it's more difficult to be successful, but there's definitely, I say never give up.
And Willow, Willow, you're so, I mean, like,
I'm stubborn. I make it work.
Stubborn, but you know what? You're stubborn, but you're very, very smart. And You're
you.
you're brave and you're a genius about a lot of things that you do. And I do think that there is just this natural pixie dust that like sprinkles around you. So I mean,
Right? Right?
it really is. I
She
mean,
does
she's like, just,
sparkle.
and she just like, and she'll tell us like,
I'm
just do
actually a
that. Just do a
vampire.
new
No.
cover.
I know, like I
Yeah.
remember the first time I
Special
met
edition.
Willow. I think the
You and
first
your
time I
fun,
met you,
I'm gonna
Willow,
shove
was
your
like
special editions.
Yeah.
like 6 years ago. We were in Boston and we were at like
Yes.
an after party.
For Talk Books.
Yes. And
Yes.
we're at this after party, and I remember you going, just do this, just do that. And I went home and I just did it. And I was like, I am missing an ingredient here. Like, you definitely, you have built out a business. You've built out an empire, and it's very, very wisely done. And I think all of us want to do that, but it is a challenge to find the right people for the right job, qualified people, loyal people. Loyalty is a big thing. And
And loyalty changes too, but that like we've had a lot of conversations about that as well. But I do think it's a team effort. It's definitely not something that you can do by
can't
yourself.
you can't.
Yeah.
And I mean, like we built out our structure in 2022. Like that was part of the restructure that year. I mean, we brought in coaching and consulting, and not just, like, so I'll work with authors who aren't even in romance, and just anyone, if there's like a business owner who wants to write a how-to book, I can help them with that. So we do a lot of that, and I teach a lot of seminars, and I have clients that I coach and things, but it's a lot to manage. And delegating, I'm not out to micromanage anyone, and I will delegate. It's a struggle to find the right people for the right job. It really is. It's a very complicated industry that no one really knows anything about if you're not in it.
Yeah.
Well, and it's really hard when you do have the Willows that are already like has a great team behind her. Not that I'm not trying to build my team, but when you still have to be level to compete in this, like people are like, well, why don't you do all this other stuff? And I'm like, I can't.
Well, what you've done, Willow, I mean, like the fact that you have Sean is like a partnership and everything, and that's so impressive. And you have someone who has their neck is as in the game as yours is. Like both of you have your necks on the line. But not only that, you're really building out, you're structuring yourself like when you're traditional published. Because really, if they're managing all of the business parts and you're kind of in control as, a CEO of the business, and you're able to delegate that, you're able to say, this person do that, da, 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 da. And I've seen you do that, and it's amazing. I mean, you could text faster than anyone I know, but I mean, what's cool about that is you get to just, escape and write. You get to create the art and the product. And that's what I really struggled with losing when and it wasn't that I chose to go hybrid. I wasn't like, oh, let me stick my toe in this pool of indie, writing. I didn't want to do that because it was very comfortable to say, and I'm done. Hand it off to an editor, get it back. 6 weeks later, it comes back with copy. That was lovely. Did I like my covers all the time? No. But it was like for what I got to do, just relax. But I don't even think traditional authors get to relax like that anymore nowadays.
I was going to say, what does relax mean?
Yeah.
And I don't think they do what they used to do. Like, I mean, they used to really market, and like that was their like, okay, we're going to really get you out there. And I've seen people take deals with these big places and they don't market them at all. And I'm like, so you want them to fail? Like, I don't even understand that. I'm like, put the money behind them, and
currently
I've seen more than not.
We were just having a conversation the other day, me and my team, part of my team, about publishing houses that have taken indie authors, and some are doing well, some aren't, and a lot sell their entire back catalog. And it was like I literally, like my jaw dropped thinking about these authors who were indie selling. And I can see why, because then you don't have to do it, right? And you get this hope of relaxing. But if it does collapse, if something changes, if they just decide not to market, then it's a matter of what you
put the payment
they
in.
do. I mean, they'll, It's tricky. Like, it's very tricky. I still value my books that are with Penguin Random House, but I would never sign with a small press again. I would never, ever do that because I do too much in the indie world and I'm too comfortable now. I mean, and it's funny because I don't know an author who's been in this game as long as I have, aside from Lori Foster's the only author that's I would consider like a friend that's still been in it as long as me. But everyone else that I, chit chat with and things like that, they've all come in after me. And I feel like some days I know the least because I'm this hybrid who I really transitioned over in 2015 to hybrid, but I didn't get a handle on it until I think I thought I had a handle on it in 2018. I started to really have a handle on it in 2020. COVID hit, everything changed again. 2022, I mean, I basically had my ass handed to me. And I, had to really, really consider how I was running my business, all of those things. And, I have to be grateful for the, having over a decade of time invested in here. I had a nice cushion that I could have a bad year. But I mean, other authors, that'll wipe them out. And
Oh yeah.
it's tricky. It really is. And it is such a hard business. So I think you have to build. I couldn't imagine not getting up in the morning without the mindset of maybe I'm here right now, this point in time, but everything's building out. And you have to, when you hire one person, even if it's just one person working 8 hours a week for you, you have to have policies for your company, the same as you would if you had 20 people, because you will get taken advantage of. That's where loyalty shifts, I find.
I'm excited though, because you are building your empire and like, I think it's going to be amazing. And I'm excited to see it all happening. Yeah. Do you have any last words of advice? Also, let us know where to follow you. And everybody listening, you should like, subscribe, and do all that good stuff too, and share.
You should. So you can, my website's lydiamichaelsbooks.com. And I'm basically at Lydia Michaels on most platforms except for Instagram. Instagram is Lydia Michaels Books, and each word's separated with an underscore. So a little different there. And yeah, you can find all my stuff there. My next release is going to be Calamity Rain Gets Hitched, which is super funny. And most of my first in series books are free, and the rest of my catalog is on KU. So
get all those freebies. Go
yeah,
yes.
Again, yeah, people that are pirating, there's a freebie book for you waiting.
Yeah, I'm just giving them away. You don't have to steal.
Yeah. Well, this has been amazing. I'm so happy to have you on. Let's talk about the cautionary tale, though. I feel like I need to go downstairs and have a drink.
One more thing that I want to caution people on, because it has to do with all of that, is I would advise, if you could avoid it, sometimes it's the only thing you have open to you and you can't avoid it. But if you can, don't sign a contract if there's an ocean separating you from that person. Don't do that. Because a lot of times, especially if it's a publisher, because a lot of times those publishers, if there is any kind of legal, fallout, you have to go to them to, take them to court. They will not come to you. So if you're signing a contract with like a, London-based publisher, and you're not willing to go and have this long drawn out court case with them in England, you're out of luck. So I would strongly suggest like keep it on the home turf. For the ease of in case there are any legal things. But yeah,
see, and mine's like, note to self: sign contracts in Bermuda.
I had to go. It was
like, I have to go to Scotland again. Oh.
Thank you so much for having me. This was great.
Thank you. It was great meeting you. It was great having you.
Thank you, Lydia.
Used to have wine with authors.
Yes.